gentlemen. You're listening to another daily editorial video on the Korelin Economics Report. I'm Al Korelin. Appreciate you joining me. Corey and I are chatting with two gentlemen who have, I think, one of the most unique mining companies out there. Kelly Claddock, who is the president of Falco Pacific, and Dean Linden, who basically is, I'm not sure what your title is, I guess I would have to say big shot, major investor, co-founder, etc.
And enthusiast.
And enthusiast, exactly. Let me tell you what's interesting about Falco Pacific. Huge asset located in the Rouyn-Noranda area, and they're not going to have to sink a single drill to prove this asset up. Tell us why, Kelly.
Well, one of the significant reasons why we are in that position is that we not only acquired over 700 square kilometers of claims, but we also acquired one of the most comprehensive exploration and mining databases probably in the world. It was the birthplace of Noranda back in 1926. They mined for 50 years, mined over 11 million ounces of gold, 2.5 billion pounds of copper, and became really created the foundation for their success. And that success, of course, is now turned into our success with the tremendous amount of data that we now have available to us.
You know, Dean and I sat down in Bellevue, Washington, and talked about the company. And that was probably one of the most interesting 2-hour conversations I've ever had. It's fascinating to me how you guys got hold of this, and I think it's worth going over so our listeners understand it.
Well, yeah, I think I first became aware of the opportunity through our, the board of directors and Kelly and that group founded a CPC company, and they were able to vend this in. And I think it's really important to note that this opportunity came as a result of this terrible market that we're in, not in spite of it. I think that, whether you look at how, a junior company is able to acquire not just a project, but an entire mining camp, that's a one-of-one situation. You couple that with the idea that, under normal circumstances, junior companies raise money and they use that money to drill. And I think that, the idea that we didn't have an opportunity to maybe raise as much money as we had liked in the early going, it sent us into this database that no one had looked at in decades. So there's a couple of things that have transpired here as a result of this abysmal market that we're in that would have never have been uncovered had this market not have sort of transpired. So we really, the genesis of Falco Pacific in its current state really is attributable to this unfortunate market that we've got, but we've made the best of it, to say the least.
Guys, there's no doubt that we're in a bad market. We have been for the last 2 years, especially for juniors looking to explore. You guys are in that position where you do need to come out with resource estimates and really prove up what's in the ground. But the unique aspect of your property is that, as Al said, you don't need to put a drill on the ground. You can go back into this database. And some of the geological people that I've been talking to about Falco have had the question, well, why don't they need to go out and prove up these holes? Hoping maybe, Kelly, you can answer that for us?
Well, it really stems back to the work that Noranda did. One of the key aspects of our evaluation is we had to stress test this thing. We had to determine the completeness of the historic database. And through that's where we discovered the 4,300 holes with respect to the Horn 5 deposit. So they had to go back and reevaluate other historic resources within the envelope to determine the accuracy, and they came within 1% of based on volume and based on grade of some of those historic resources. So that was what really gave the confidence to our engineers in Explo to be able to take us down this path. I think the second thing is there were also historic core that came part of the package, drill core, and that we went through now an analysis of some of those holes, and that's effectively now allowed us to confirm the accuracy of the grade and of the gravity.
Kelly or Dean, whichever one of you wants to answer the question. Where I'm curious is we're starting a new year. We're recording this about mid-January of 2014. Where do you guys go from here?
Well, I think the most exciting thing about what has transpired here is, in our industry, you put forth, most companies here would spend a lot of money in order to put out a 43-101. And then the question comes, what are you going to do next? You've spent all your money drilling to get this 43-101 put together, And in order to make that 1 ounce bigger, you've got to mortgage the whole farm. You've got to raise a bunch more money.
No, you're wrong about that. You got to mortgage the whole state.
There you go. And I think what's important to note about us is, in addition to the 4,300 drill holes that have gone into this current 43-101 that we'll be unveiling before the end of the quarter, we've got another $100 million worth of drilling that we will be able to analyze between now and, let's say, the middle of the year. So, whatever we put out in this 43-101 is merely the tip of the iceberg, both from a compliant resource standpoint, and maybe more importantly, from a general understanding of what is there. Why is this there? I mean, as long as there's been Noranda, there has been this. Geologists have gone there and wondered, why is this here? And I think that what we've unfurled here is perhaps the greatest understanding of this region that anybody's ever known to date. So I think that's very noteworthy as well. So we've got a lot of places, a lot of directions we can go from here, and it's going to be a pretty exciting 2014, I suspect.
As you mentioned, Dean, you guys are looking at this property from a different aspect, because Noranda, when they were in there, they mined out this property, but they weren't looking for precious metals. They were mining copper, I believe, which is a different metal altogether. What makes you guys think that there is the grade, the gold grade, it's still around and mineable, that you guys can go back in there and really prove this to be a whole nother discovery?
I think from the outset, when Kelly and those guys looked at this, and I'll let him speak to it as well, but there is, as Kelly said before, there's 12 million ounces of gold that were mined as a byproduct of copper production. So it would be foolish to think, in hindsight, it's foolish to think that they didn't leave a lot behind there. And I think that we've had the benefit of being able to look at a lot of drill intersections that tell that story. So I think that there's a lot of comfort there that we'll be able to produce a resource that will show that very thing.
And I think one other thing to note is that they were evaluating Horn 5 deposit 30-40 years ago from a ability to produce a copper concentrate, because the smelter in Oroa Noranda that's at surface, that's what it processed. So because Horn 5 was not necessarily rich in copper, but it was rich in gold, and also rich in zinc and silver, it never made the grade, so to speak. So for us, with gold prices now, arguably 5 to 10 times higher than when they originally evaluated Horn 5 deposit, it changes the economics on it. It changes the decision-making profile on this asset.
Well, I have to tell you, I know a little bit about that area, having been there a number of times. You're in probably one of the best mining regions of Canada. There's a tremendous amount of governmental support there, and it really, the picture couldn't get any better than that. Plus, you have a lot of activity going on right now with the recent takeover attempt of Osisko. You've got the same thing going on, in a sense, with another company called Clifton Star Resources. You guys are really in the catbird seat up there. Ladies and gentlemen, keep one thing in mind. Corey and I are not registered investment advisors. We know when we see something that we like that we want to bring it over to your attention. If you want more information on this particular company, simply click on their banner on our website. We will be purchasing stock in the company. We'll give you our normal 3-day advance notice before we do that. Kelly, Dean, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.